Hello everyone, welcome to another Brownbag from 𝗲𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. I'll be your host and speaker today. Let's start. I'll just quickly introduce myself first. So I'm 𝗬𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, working at 𝗲𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 since 2018. I'm in the lead for everything which is happening around R&D and services, but also academy. So, in practice, we see at a lot of customers, we get a lot of questions lately, certainly last month, about AI. What is happening there? How can you help us there? What do we need to do about this? How do we incorporate that in our test strategy, but even broader in our development strategy in general? And how do we leverage that in the best way possible? Because everybody has tried and errored or tried several things or several tools, and it never really solves everything. So how do we use it in the correct way? And we get those questions a lot lately at customers. So yeah, that triggered me to make a Brownbag about this, so we can maybe steer a little bit, or maybe already help you get ready to prepare for incorporating AI the best way possible in your strategy. So yeah, we all know we had several industrial revolutions over the years. So starting in 1784, some more or less, we had the first industrial revolution. Up until now, we are talking about Industry 5.0, where AI is really changing everything, how we worked today, how we managed everything today, and it's really getting into our society and industries, and that's why we get all those questions, of course. And it's not only the questions. We also sense a little bit of fear here and there. How is it going to change things? What do we need to prepare for? And it's fine, that's normal. AI is no different from other industry revolutions. So we just need to get ourselves, we learn about it and know how to prepare ourselves for that. So in the beginning, AI was just in tools or a ChatGPT or very limited usage. And now we will see AI being our colleague, really being incorporated in our full strategy. So let's start with traditional software development and test automation. In the beginning, that was really human-centered. So humans really explicitly defined what was happening there. They really determined the execution, the code, etc. It was really predictable, powerful, but also limited. Well, the next phase we saw, and up until recently, and still happening today, of course, is AI assisting us in tooling, inside tools, as an assistant, an intelligent assistant who really suggests things, makes some predictions, optimizes our code, our scripts, etc. For example, self-healing is one of those examples on that. Some test management tools also have a test generator incorporated, things like that. It's still rather reactive because it only happens after you ask something or start typing something, but it supports you and it's already a help. And that's where most organizations are today or are experimenting with. And often we encounter people thinking that this is where it ends. This is where they need to learn to work with that. Of course, this needs to happen. You need to leverage that assistant in the tooling, of course, but there's more than that, and there's going to come more to you in the next yeah, couple of years or months even. And that's those AI agents. For those who already heard about it, we are going to explain it a little bit further on the next slides. What are AI agents? But that's the next step. They are not only supporting us or suggesting things, they are really live, active collaborators. You can talk about it as a colleague in your team. So your AI it needs to be incorporated in the test strategy. Your test strategy needs to be AI ready, and not only your test strategy, your full SDLC strategy, of course. In order to enable it and to scale it the right way, you need to be ready. And that's what we are going to talk about today, of course. So first things first, AI agents. What are they not? They are no chatbot or ChatGPT replacement. That's something else. Of course, they use capabilities of that, or they give similar output, but they are not a chatbot and not ChatGPT. It's not a single AI feature in a tool, so it's not an assistant in a tool. It's certainly not a replacement for testers, and we're gonna elaborate on that a little bit further, but it's not replacing your testers or any other people in your team. It's not fully autonomous. It's not going to make decisions on its own. And it's not the magic silver bullet that everybody thinks it is. It's going to really help you a lot, of course, but it's not going to do it all without context and everything. So what is it then? It is a task-oriented AI collaborator. That means it really has a specific, clear responsibility, its own set of tasks. It's really trained to do one thing, like, for example, test design or automation scripting or analysis. It's really trained for that specific purpose. It's like a specialist in that area. It's context aware, so we need to really train it with all the context. If it doesn't have all the context, it's not going to do its tasks well. Consider it like a junior test engineer you are training. You need to give it all the information that it needs and give it its boundaries and rules. That's how you need to do it within those boundaries, because if you don't do that, it will start hallucinating and everything. So it really is able to reason, act, and learn based on whatever we as humans give it as input. And it really learns from that feedback to improve over time. So it will get better and better and better. Just as you train your other colleagues, it will get better and better over time. So it's still orchestrated, or it needs to be orchestrated and validated by humans. Otherwise, it's going to start freewheeling, and that's not where the real help will be. It really will only help you accelerate if you train it well. So it's not about adding more tools, more AI assistants. It's really changing how we work and how we work with those agents, how we incorporate them as a colleague in your team. So it won't replace the testers. It really just will replace testers and teams who don't know how to use it. Because if teams are really using it well, those will be the ones who will accelerate a lot and replace the teams who don't use it in the future. So just about this reasoning and learning and feedback cycle, this is a typical cycle for agentic AI. So first, of course, it needs to understand what you want. It really needs to interpret what you're asking, the task you're asking him to do. And it will plan. It will break down everything what you ask into separate tasks. Maybe even for a certain question, it will consult another agent who has a specific other task, because it needs some input from that other colleague. It will remember all the context that you put in there or learned or over time, and it will use that as context to make the response or the action better. the action itself, of course, it's going to execute some tasks. It can be whatever, and we will give some examples later, but whatever task it needs to do, it will execute it. And then the human will feedback on that task, whether it was done right, or whether an extra boundary is needed, or it's missing some context. It will give feedback, and then the agent will learn from that. So it really works together with humans, other agents, context, etc. It's really integrated in your team and in how you work, or it should be. So what does that mean for testers nowadays? So the testers will move from executors, like really designing test cases, executing test cases, scripting automation scripts, etc., to more of an orchestrator kind of job, where you really leverage those agents who are going to do the repetitive work for you, but you are going to orchestrate, validate, make sure that they are doing the right thing in the right way with the right tools, etc. So the tester, in this case, really defines what the boundaries are, what the goals are, where you want to go. The agent, which is trained for that specific task, is going to execute it based on that info. It's going to propose some options, and you will validate whether those outcomes or decisions are right, and you will decide finally. And based on that feedback, based on that decisions, it will learn to do it better next time. So this is called the human in the loop model. The human still needs to be in the loop for agents to be really good and really learn it the right way. If we just let them free will, they are not going to learn it the right way or how we want it. So this human in the loop stays in between these agents, which he's going to use to leverage and accelerate his tasks, and other humans, customers, tools, other agents. So it's really, you are in the center of that complete ecosystem, and you are going to make it work for you. So testing with AI doesn't really reduce your responsibility, it even raises the bar. You're going to be more responsible for whatever comes out of that, because you are at the steering wheel. So AI agents or colleagues, they really create value for repetitive, cognitive and context-heavy work, where you have a lot of information that needs to be processed, really complex tasks, which take a lot of time. That's where they are perfect for. So it really accelerates all the preparation work, not really the decisions. The decisions you are still going to make based on what it's proposing. So it accelerates the preparation, it expands all your options, it's going to cover all the variables which take a lot of time to do it manually, but not the authority. You still keep the authority. And it reduces manual effort, of course, because it's a lot of work to do that all manually. So it really supports your thinking and execution, but we still remain the validators. So some concrete tasks which agents can help you with, like, for example, and there's more than this, of course, but some examples like requirements, understanding, clarification, finding gaps there, finding risks there, maybe some issues in the documentation, things like that. Identifying some impacts of changes, because it has all the context. It really can, over time, it really can assess whether something has impact somewhere else, or it's not mentioned somewhere else, or it's mentioned in a different way. It really helps you make that impact analysis. Translating requirements into test goals or test cases, etc. What are we going to test? Acceptance criteria, acceptance test cases, things like that. Of course, the test scenario and test case generation, but also the test data. remember this data, which is really difficult to create often. Often we need a lot of volume. We cannot just copy the production database, so it's always a problem. This is something where they are also very good at, of course. Test automation support, of course, script generation, maintenance, flakiness detection. They already mark where the test might get it wrong or should be adapted based on maybe some new information and everything. Yeah. So what you are building there is really a live asset of knowledge, because it learns from everything, not only the documentation you are giving it, but every change you make, every test case you generate and adapt, because it's not good enough. It will learn from that again, and it really becomes a live knowledge base, centralized, and not in somebody's head or somewhere on a SharePoint. So actually this might remove some friction between several roles or stakeholders within a team, because they all are working with the same information and they are enriching each other's information. So we are all talking about the same thing after we all steer and govern this AI as the human in the loop. So the advantages, of course, are scaling, speed, coverage, and this knowledge centralization that I already mentioned. So scaling, of course, one tester, one analyst, or one developer steers multiple AI agents with several tasks or specific responsibilities, and they are all working in parallel, whereas in the past you should do it all manual and more sequentially. You can consult several context sources at the same time, very quick. It connects with multiple tools and frameworks, which makes your daily life just so much easier. So that, of course, results into speed, test design, analysis, test case generation, etc. happens continuously. Even on moments where you are going to have a lunch break, it can already generate everything you want based on your specific question, of course. And you can immediately start your work from already generated assets. You don't have to create them first. It's not a blank page. You already get a lot of suggestions where you can start from. Will they be perfect the first time? Probably not. But over time, it will become better and better, and you already start from something. You don't have to build it from scratch. Coverage, of course, it will vastly expand all the variations which are possible, which is much more complex and time-consuming to do it manually. But of course, we still define what matters. If there's a selection to be made, AI can also, of course, help you define which selection is best to make based on certain requirements or context. And the big advantage is knowledge centralization. It's shared, up-to-date, reusable, and not person-dependent, which is often an issue when people are leaving or not available, or it's in somebody's head or on a hard drive of a computer, or not everybody has the most up-to-date version. So this really solves that area, which is one of the biggest advantages, according to me. So yeah, of course, we all know now what AI can do, but how do we incorporate that in our test strategy? Yeah? Because it really changes the way we work, the way we develop software. And why, to do that better is first understanding why traditional test strategies often fall short. Because they are built solely or mainly around human execution and capacity, which has its limitations, of course. If we can only expand by adding more people or adding more time or adding more budget, it has the limitations of all those three things. They often assume sequential work, even if we're working agile or hybrid. It's still work that needs to be done manually, scripting, designing, coding, etc. It's all work happening manually or maybe assisted by some AI assistance in tools, but it's still quite sequential, happening not so much in parallel. It's often still reactive. Validation and testing often happens after the delivery of the requirements, if we are lucky, sometimes after development, or even worse, after test execution. We still only feedback the issues after we already tested it. And this needs to change. It needs to become more and more proactive, and AI really can help us there. Knowledge lives in people and documents, as I already said, and often not up to date, which is a huge issue often. Test data generation, also time consuming, difficult, often a problem. And software delivery is really exploding. So developers are also using generative AI or AI in tools, Copilot, etc. And this increases, of course, the risks, the defects, and also things that look right but are not really right, which is often difficult to catch. And that's where AI can really help if we also use it in the QA area. So what must evolve? And there's a few things that must evolve based on what we are used to doing right now. So first things first, test design approach. The way we design test cases needs to change. Before, testers mostly did this manually. They read the documents, read the requirements, had some meetings, maybe were involved in refinement meetings or whatever, but you did it manually or not, no test cases. Now, testers can still define the intent, the boundaries. How do our test cases need to look like? They need to be, for example, in PDD, or they need to be in a certain test management tool. They always have to have preconditions, etc., etc. You give the rules. You also give the context where to look at, and then AI creates all those variations, which gives you a large coverage. Doesn't mean everything it's creating it's going to be 100% correct, but you start from something already. You don't have to do it all manually. You can correct it manually and then feedback it back to the AI, so next time it's going to do it right. Review and validation. Before, we reviewed right now, we review the requirements, or worse, the results when it's already delivered. It should be now continuous validation of whatever AI outputs. Everything which comes out of AI, we need to validate and make it learn to do it better. So the focus really shifts to the quality of your prompts, the quality of your rules you give it, the context you are giving it, the training you are doing on it, and the feedback you are giving back to AI. So that's where the focus should be right now. AI doesn't really remove the work this way, because it moves the work upstream, so before everything is developed and created. So that means the human in the loop really is really important. So early requirement validation, really necessary to make as a next step to really improve. It becomes more and more important. It was already important. We already recommended that always when we improve test strategies, but now it even becomes more important, because if that input into AI is really good or better, AI becomes even more powerful. So early feedback loops, really critical. Of course, things involving ownership, skills, and accountability are also changing, regulations changing. So first things first, before, every tester, every person doing some work within software delivery was accountable for its own work. You were writing the script, so you are accountable of how they look. Now you stay accountable with those agents, but you are not accountable for writing them, but you are accountable for what AI is allowed to do and accepting the outcome. So you are accountable for accepting whatever comes out of AI is correct. So the accountability stays, but moves somewhere else. Yeah, you also need to be high leverage resource. So somebody who needs to be able to really work with AI safely and effectively. You need to have the knowledge, the skills to know how to steer and orchestrate those agents. So you shift, as I said already, from an executor to an orchestrator, and you need to have those skills or train yourself to do it the correct way. You need to know how AI works to steer it correctly, of course. Regulation becomes even more important. Before, of course, we already all know the GDPR, ISO, etc. Maybe some internal policies you have at your company, data privacy, of course. The usage right now of AI is largely ungoverned or informal. We use it, maybe we use 𝗕𝗵𝗶 or Copilot or whatever chatbot we are allowed to use or use without being allowed. It's often still very informal or not really governed. We see some AI policies, of course, in some companies popping up, certainly end of last year, but it will become really, really important. AI literacy and knowing what is in that EU AI Act and what we are allowed to do, and having rules for your company is becoming really important. So also that you need to learn. And then, which is something, of course, we already recommended also in the past, but 𝗕𝗵𝗂 shift left, it was already a recommendation, best practice. A lot of companies already try to do it the right way, but it's becoming a non-negotiable if we move to AI agent, agentic usage in software delivery. So what we often see right now is where quality is mainly done in the later stages, often already moved a little bit up front, but yeah, still happening mainly after something is delivered. Testing and development are largely sequential, not always. A lot of test automation already happens in parallel, but still largely sequential. QA feedback arrives after we test or after we reviewed some requirements, so it's still rather reactive. And those quality gates, when we add them, we often add them right after a certain stage. So still a little bit too much shift right. So what becomes non-negotiable is moving everything as early as possible. So quality needs to be owned now by all the stakeholders in your team, in your project. They all need to know how to leverage AI, how to maintain quality with it. QA needs to be embedded in all your phases: analysis, development, testing, release, to be proactive as possible. You need faster or preferably automated feedback loops between all the stakeholders in your team. And it needs to be robust and scalable. The automation frameworks need to be robust and scalable because they need to work for your complete SDLC. They need to be able to be plugged into your AI agents. The AI agents need to know what the rules are. So it needs to be a really robust framework for it to use it correctly and to scale it over time. So AI enables this shift left because it's going to help you to move shift left earlier, because In the past, it often was a lot of manual and extra work. For example, reviewing requirements was a lot of work, took a lot of time, and that's why often it only happened not so exhaustive. So AI will enable you to do that faster, so it enables you to move more shift left and support this continuous feedback on the whole cycle. At 𝗕𝗿𝐻𝗃, we have our own QA maturity model, which already existed before AI, of course, but we adapted it to be able to also assess whether your strategy is ready for AI. And as you can see, we work with 4 levels of maturity: initial, basic, efficient, and continuous. And in initial, you don't see the AI icon there because it's often the basic testing, ad hoc, not really having any strategy, often not really using AI or using it the wrong way. So there we don't talk about AI, but when we move to next stages, we can also assess whether you are using AI on those several areas which you see in the swimming lanes, using it the right way, or at least are moving it the right way in your, or embedding it the right way in your test strategy. So when we improve practices, and it could be non-AI practices, but really practices who enable the use of AI to make it more efficient and more effective when you would implement it. So we still use the same QA maturity model, but we added the correct things into those topics to make sure that AI is embedded the right way and in the right roadmap. So the purpose is always, when you are creating test strategies, to make sure that they work for your context, of course. There's not one strategy for every company. Of course, there are best practices, but we need to really embed them and make sure it works for the way you work in your specific context. So we need to bring clarity and often a lot of simplicity, and really engineer trust in there. We need to take away any complexity where possible, of course, to make sure that it's really clear. And AI should be in the center. It really should connect with whatever you are doing, with your developers, with the way you are reporting, with your data, with all your tools you're using right now, with the people, the process, with your automation solution, your test cases, etc. So it really needs to be in the center of that, because it's going to leverage all that information, all that context, and all those humans which are also connected to it, to make it a central orchestration for everything you do regarding software delivery. As I said before, we incorporated in AI thinking and AI preparation and AI strategy into our QA maturity model, which is something we use in a bright scan. So when we do bright scans right now at companies, we also give a lot of recommendations on how to leverage AI, how to use it the right way. It doesn't need to be full-blown all the way in the beginning. It could be still this AI-assisted tooling, but used in the correct way and preparing you for the next step, maybe in AI agentic usage. So we help you transform to that AI way of thinking and strategy. And this we do by proposing roadmaps to really get you there step by step, because some companies might not be ready right away or tomorrow. They need to fix a few steps before they are ready to move ahead full blown. So I don't want to leave out the pitfalls, of course, because often when we are trying out new things or strategies, there are some pitfalls which we need to be aware of. AI is never a magic button. It's not going to work without our rules, our involvement as a human. We really need to treat it as a colleague who really needs to learn everything about how we work, what our context is, what's the complexity of our environment, our landscape, what are the integrations, what are the tools we use. Treat it as a colleague you need to train from scratch. Often we see a lot of isolated experiments without a plan behind it. Oh, let's try this new test management tool. It has AI generated test cases. Yeah, we're going to use it without agreeing how to use it, when to use it, etc. Tool first. Often people think about tools when they are thinking about AI, while actually they need to think about what they want from it first. What do you want to reach? What's your goal? That's the first thing you need to think about. With that, the strategy changes, and then you can think tools. Often we underestimate the change of the impact, both on people and processes. Your role is really going to change. The more AI is used, the more AI is leveraged. People need to work in a different way and think in a different way. And also the assumption that AI is going to reduce the need of skilled testers, and I specifically mentioned skilled testers. Often this is a way of thinking that, oh, we let AI do everything and we don't need the skilled testers anymore. Often that's not going to work, and I'll elaborate that in a few seconds. So AI adaptation without strategy and skills, it really is only going to increase the risk instead of reducing it. So keep your skilled testers, which you have right now, learn them to work with AI, learn them how to use it, and how to leverage it. So more time needs to be spent on expert tasks. It's not the simple test case generation. They really need to orchestrate and guide AI. So this really needs expert experience. So they need to define the intent, set the boundaries. For that, you really need expert skills. You need to create robust test automation frameworks, which you can plug into AI. Again, this needs expert skills. Validating requirements and outcome of AI, again, needs expert skills. And as I mentioned before, those are the two critical shift left, early, proactive things to change for AI, to prepare for AI. So this is really critical, and this can only be done by really good testing experts. More output is going to be generated as before, so more validation will be needed. You really need the correct critical thinking skills for that. You need to understand how system works. You need to have experience in certain failure patterns and everything, so expert tasks. You need, when you have that expertise in your team, you need to use it to become more effective with AI. So without that built or learned domain knowledge, you cannot validate the AI outputs. It will remain shallow or irrelevant. It will generate some test cases, but you cannot validate whether they are right or not. So some risks will be missed. Of course, as a new tester, you will learn that, of course, this domain knowledge. And again, this centralized knowledge can make you learn that business knowledge even faster. A really good skilled AI tester, or a tester who uses AI, can turn noise into insight, can really use all that information for the right way and quickly give feedback to whomever needs certain information, and create not only volume, but volume with value. Value, the right set of test cases, because you input your expertise into AI and it will get that same expertise from you. So QA is not going away, but the definition of what is qualified or quality or your expectation of quality, that will change. So that was it. We can move to the question. I saw there are some questions in the chats. Let me first check the, okay, voila. Let's tackle each question one by one. So first things first, will there be some kind of demo? No, this is not a demo because I am not talking about tools, but about test strategies. There are tools who are able to do this, which are already leveraging the AI agentic way of working. And the next Brownbag will be one of those tools who is able to do that. For example, 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀. Next Brownbag, we will talk about SAP automation, very specific, of course, with 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀, but there are also other demos which are already on our platform, which we will send you with all the information after this Brownbag. And there you can see some demos of tools who are able to use this agentic AI way of thinking. Okay, next one. When switching to AI, is it better to start with several agents that can work together? For example, requirement agent to write requirements in a controlled way, plus the scripting agent who knows to translate those requirements, or can we start with one and then sometime later add another, and where best to start? Yes. Of course, the more agents who have a really specific task and are also collaborating together, of course, this is going to move you along quicker. But when you only start with one, I would first do the requirement agent first, if you really have to choose, because that is where the most value is going to be had on the long run. If that is really validated and well written and all the gaps are gone, and you really have an agent who can really assist you there, of course this is going to help you later on when you add a scripting agent. But the best way, I think, is having them both, because they learn from each other also, and you can immediately use the information from the requirement agent into the scripting agents. Next question. Given the high volume of output from AI and the likelihood it will hallucinate, wouldn't it just be quicker to write the test yourselves rather than having to go through the AI output line by line? Yes, if you just let AI generate whatever, it will, of course, create too much noise, as I said in the previous slides, too much noise, too much volume, and no value. Either hallucinating or maybe generating test cases which are not really the highest priority. So that's what I mean with the human in the loop. Before you let it generate anything, you really need to give it its boundaries. For example, you're gonna say, only create these positive test cases for me, which have the highest priority according, for example, a certain requirement or a certain set of information that you are referring to. So you really are going to prompt it really closed, and really are going to ask only what you need, and giving it all the rules to create what you need. And then you can get, of course, still a lot of volume, which is a lot to do. If you would do it manually, it would take you a lot of time, but you already get it. And it will be as close to what you want as possible. And then you only have to adjust maybe a few details or add maybe one or two test cases. And then you feedback it back. Next time it will learn to do it better, because it now knows how you reason and what you need. Maybe it generated something in the wrong format, so then you know you need to learn it to do it the right way next time. So it really is going to, in the beginning, maybe need a little bit more steering and feedbacking, but it will become much, much better the second time, third time, fourth time. So no, I don't think it will be better to do it still manually, because it just takes a lot more time to do it all manually if you want to have the same amount of coverage. Next question. Are there existing agents or platforms that can be more or less used out of the box with some tailored configuration, or do they need to be fully designed from scratch based on your environment? There are tools who can do it. As I mentioned before, the 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀, which I will send you the information of, and also some demo material after the Brownbag. So there are tools who already have this out of the box. They already have those several AI agents with their specific responsibility and tasks, which you can plug into your environment with some integration. So the integration also comes out of the box in 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀. You can plug it into whatever tool you are using right now, your frameworks, etc. So it's already out of the box usable. We'll send you all the information after the meeting. But when you are using such a thing as 𝗧𝗵𝗶𝗀, again, your test strategy needs to adapt to, because if you want to have the maximum value out of such a tool, your way of working as a test engineer and your skills and everything, as I mentioned in this Brownbag, need to change also. But yeah, they are existing already. Okay, I answered all the questions. There's one new one I see. When an AI agent can act on changes, for example, requirements and test scripts on the fly, how about traceability of the changes made? This is important in a more regulated environment, for example, FDA. Is it possible to generate documents of the changes? Yes. So those, for example, this tool I was talking about earlier on, when it makes changes to your requirements or your test scripts, it will log that. So everything is having a category added or a tag added, like, okay, this is AI generated, or this is changed on that timestamp. It's going to keep history and everything. Everything will also be saved in that tool, every change, who did it, etc., who validated it, everything. So it is compliance ready, or compliant for regulated environments. So yes, it's really important. As I mentioned, this is one of the things which is really important within adopting AI agents. Yes. Another question, is it correct to say that AI test assistants can assist 80% of a tester's work? What is the remaining 20% where AI agents, etc., will be of no use? Yes, yes, I think those numbers are more or less correct. Will depend on context, of course, and how early on you are in adopting AI. But the 20% out in the open will be the whole validation part. The good thing about it is that you can now really do that and really create and train an AI which is really going to help you. You can put your efforts there and also do more with the time you have. For example, creating a very good, robust framework to plug into it, making sure that it's every time you create things, it's going to be more and more autonomously and helping you to do more and more with the time you have. So the 20% where it doesn't help you is the final decisions, the learning, and the feedback you need to put into it. Okay, I think I tackled all the questions. If there's any other questions later on, you can always contact us, of course. And then if there's anything popping up, or you have any other questions, or you need a very specific demo or brainstorming session for your context, then of course you can always contact us. So that was it for today, and hope to see you next time. Thanks all for joining. Bye-bye.